car. That's good. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are finally getting back to work on my 1985 Audi Coupe. Last time I worked on this was over a year ago, sometime in, I think it was July 2020. It's the last video I made. It is now October 2021. So this is a long-term project, needs a ton of work. I did get the motor running halfway decent, not great yet. That needs some work. Body needs a lot of work, interior needs a ton of work. But the last thing I started on was the clutch. Clutch is shot, and I started pulling the clutch on it. I can't really remember where I left off, so I'm going to have to kind of dig around and find that out. Put this thing up in the air and take a look at it quick. Alright, so I got all the exhaust off last year. You can see this thing's pretty rusty underneath. Anyways, I got all the exhaust off. Axles are loose. Starter is off of it. So I think the next step is to support the motor. The motor has to be supported from the fender wells, and then I can start pulling those bolts out of the transmission to get this thing dropped. So I have to take the shift linkage off too, and speedometer cable, clutch hydraulic lines, a few other things. So we'll get started on this and see how far we get today. And I should add, this isn't a how-to video, this is just kind of how I'm doing things. Alright, so the first step will be to get this homemade unistrut on here to support the motor. My dad built this a few years back just so it's kind of fit to whatever you want, whatever you're working on. And this is actually how the book says to support the motor. You put typically you have a specialized Audi tool that goes across each fender well. This works pretty well too. Alright, so here's what we have so far. We've got the homemade engine support stand going across to the fenders, and then just one piece of rod down here to the motor mount, there to the motor support. Alright, so I've got this transmission mount loose there. Got the shift linkage loose. I really didn't want to take it off that shaft. I wanted to take it off down here, but I couldn't get that off there. So I marked it. Hopefully I can get it back in the same spot, otherwise it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to get the shifting set up right. Now I'm just working on the bolts that hold the transmission to the motor. And then I'll get a jack underneath here and support it, see if I can get it dropped. Alright, so here's kind of where I'm at. I've got all the bolts except for two out on the transmission, the top two. I've got the speedometer cable off, axles. I can't quite get to the hose for the hydraulics. I'll have to drop the transmission a little bit to reach that, I think. And then I need to take the two bolts off the steering rack right here. If you can see it or not. I can get you from the top. Those two down there. Just so the tie rods will be out of the way when I pull the transmission back. So I'll get those next, and then I'll get the last two bolts and see if we can get this thing pulled back a little bit. Really close to getting this thing out. I still have one bolt on the very bottom here that I can't quite get. I thought I could just unbolt the bottom housing from the motor and take the whole thing off, but it doesn't seem to want to come loose. So it looks like I got to get that guy out of there somehow. Right there. Alright, so I was able to break that loose. I just pried the motor or the whole transmission back a little bit and got that loose.
Okay, which way are you going to go with it?
Roll it out the back, you think?
Okay.
Get this car up a little higher.
Yeah.
Alright, so we got the transmission out. Looks pretty dirty. I'll have to get that cleaned up. Next step is just get the clutch off here. Just a few bolts right around the edge, all Allen's. So we'll pull that off quick, and then that'll be the end of this one. Alright, so the clutch is out. Here's what the flywheel looks like. Doesn't feel, that feels not great. There's a little groove on the outside there. So normally you'd either resurface that or just replace it. I'll have to think about that. Here's what the old clutch looks like. Not completely terrible. It's not down to the rivets yet, but it's bad enough to where it was slipping. Just for reference, here's a new one. You can see the new one's quite a bit thicker. There's your pressure plate. Got a new pressure plate in here, a new throwout bearing. So that's going to be it for this one. I'm going to order a few more parts. I'm just going to replace the slave cylinder. I couldn't get this hose loose, so I've got to get a new hydraulic hose for that. And I'm just cutting that off. The transmission mount was bad, so I got to order that. Rubber's just falling off it here. See, it's all ripped. So that's it for this one, guys. I'm gonna order some parts. I'm gonna try and get videos out at least every other week, possibly every week if I've got the time. And we'll see if we can make some progress on this thing. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.